He was just so nice and
that's what I mean.
Let us try all different kinds of gelato.
He had a funny hat on, and he was just telling us all about the gelato.
He reminded me of Steve Harrington at Chips Ahoy.
Oh my God, he was Italian Steve Harrington.
He reminded me of that a lot.
Oh my God, he so was. And he had a tip jar that said, I think it said funds
to go to Hawaii.
Fund.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so adorable.
Yeah, we gave him a really big tip.
Hey everybody, welcome to A Grade, the podcast where a college professor and a middle school teacher taste, review, and grade America's best coffee roasters, craft breweries, and more. We have new episodes every Monday morning at 7 a.m. And if you want some awesome bonus content, just hop on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/agradepodcast. We have tons of behind the scenes pictures, videos, and a full report card of every place we've ever visited and much more. So you can just go on over to patreon.com/agradepodcast for all of those bonus goodies. Sign up, become an A-grader yourself, or just click on the link. There should be a link in the episode description wherever you're listening to this as well. My name, of course, is Joe, and I am joined, as always, of course, by...
Hi, everybody. I'm Jackie.
And welcome back to, I guess, part 2 of our Italy recap experience, right?
Yes, part 2 of 4, where we are going to go through and rate, review, and grade our experience in 4 different cities in Italy.
Basically. The last is kind of more of a region, but we'll get to that when we get to it.
Absolutely.
So last week we did Florence. If you didn't listen to that, definitely check it out because I think it's some good context. We give a lot of really good travel advice, I think. We definitely learned a lot going to Italy and experiencing the transit and which sites are worth seeing and maybe worth ignoring.
Yeah, what to skip and what to do.
Yeah, so there's some very practical advice if you're planning a trip to not just Italy, but some of these specific places such as Florence. So check out that if you didn't listen. Go back and listen to some of our other stuff. I know it's a little confusing because, as I said in the intro, we usually do American coffee roasters and craft breweries. But, of course, hey, if we're doing a trip to Italy, we're not going to not do some grades.
And we did learn when we were in Italy that America is very unique, I think, in its craft beer and coffee roaster culture here.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
We really did struggle to find any coffee roasters or craft beer breweries like you would find in America. So we, instead of reviewing individual random restaurants, we decided to review the cities themselves and thought that would be a better guide, more helpful and more interesting for our listeners.
And I should reiterate from last week going into this week that we are grading our experience more so than the city itself, because depending what time of year you go, where exactly you are, that experience, and therefore your letter grade might be very different. So take our grades with a grain of salt in that sense, because it is our experience. And we were sort of saying that with Florence last week, that if we went a different time of year, the grade might be different or slightly altered for various reasons. But anyways, I guess you want to get into it, Rome?
Yeah, let's get into Rome. I was really, really, really excited to go to Rome because I've heard such mixed things.
Yeah, I had the same sort of context going in where so many different people who had gone on all sorts of vacations, family vacations, not family vacations, business, whatever the case, very different opinions in terms of what their experiences are and how they felt about Rome, especially in the context of other areas maybe that they visited in Italy.
Yeah, and if I'm being honest, I feel like a lot of the feedback I've heard about Rome just from people that I've talked to here in New York has been that people don't love the city.
I was fully expecting that I wouldn't love the city based on what I had heard from some pretty reputable travel resources.
And I don't know if other listeners have had this experience, but I was going into Rome with not the highest expectations. And as opposed to Florence, where everyone just kind of raves about Florence. I didn't hear anything bad about Florence. But Rome, I heard mixed opinions. Some people loved it. Some people didn't love it. So we were going in with an interesting perspective where I didn't really know what to expect or how to feel in Rome.
I was expecting that the history would be awesome and the rest of it would be trash, which there is a trash problem, but we'll get to that when we give our grade.
When we give our grades.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is for the first portion of the episode, probably the first 20 minutes or so, we're going to do a quick recap of the different things that we did when we were in Rome. We'll talk about our kind of daily summaries of what we did each day and some tips and tricks that we learned while we were doing those things, some things that we really liked, some things we'd avoid. After that, we'll go right into our grading categories, which are You tell him this time.
I do it?
Yeah.
You're the grading category.
I know. I'm taking your job
announcer.
and you're doing mine. It's kind of weird.
All right. I expect a pay raise, but
Yes.
Atmosphere and ambiance.
Yes.
Service. The food.
Yeah.
And the fourth one is
Drinks.
which again we would normally do for an American coffee roaster or a craft brewery, but it works for a city experience just as well.
Yeah, which has been really fun to kind of incorporate our rubric that we use for the traditional podcast and use it in this 4-part series.
So you can begin with the recap.
Yes. So we had a solid 6 days in Rome pretty much. And the first day we got there, we had come from Florence. We took train Italia for most of our travels throughout Italy when we could.
Oh God, was that the one that was double booked
Yes.
on the way to Rome?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that was a disaster. We
And-
basically got on the train and
Yes.
everybody said, "Oh, we have these seats."
Yes.
And then somehow there wasn't a riot. And that was the first experience of among many when I
Yes.
was expecting a riot, because there are situations where I saw elbows flying. People were ready to throw down trying to get on Italian transit. It's pretty wacky.
Yeah, and I promise we're going to get to the Rome part of this, but that was also the train that we were on, that this train was double booked. There was chaos. There was a lot of people on the train. It's really hot. And there is a man using two.
Oh, Jellyman?
Yes, he is using two
God.
seats. And he has the table completely spread out because he has a 4-course meal that he is making of breakfast with literally a jar of jelly, a knife, and rolls. While all of this chaos is going on, this dude is reading the newspaper and eating jelly on a roll with eggs and a bagel. It was
I don't think that's an Italian thing for the record.
It was absurd.
I don't think it's an Italian thing at all. I think it's a him thing.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
He did not care. I wish I had that mentality of no.
But we had to move. We had
F's
to give up
given.
those seats because
We did.
you just said, I can't do this.
I can't watch this. It
Yeah.
was 100 degrees. I'm I cannot watch this guy spoon jelly out of a jar, put it on his roll, and then take out 2 more rolls
Yeah.
while
It
everybody's
was when he took out the
where
2
do
more
I
rolls
sit?
and he's just going,
I'm I cannot sit here and watch this guy eat. But that was the start of our Rome experience. But from there, when we actually did get into Rome, it was great because we had so much time that we spent the first day exploring the neighborhood that we stayed in.
which is called
Trastevere.
Trastevere.
Did I say it right?
actually don't know how
Yeah.
you pronounce it.
We actually
Trastevere.
Trastevere. I looked up on Google different translations, and every YouTube video I watched and every pronunciation guide I saw pronounced it differently.
Yeah, I could see
But
that.
either way, Trastevere was the neighborhood that we stayed in an Airbnb, and we explored it the first day.
Which you definitely shouldn't stay in. It's kind of a trash neighborhood. So avoid it at all costs. Stay on the other side of the river where it's way cooler.
Note his sarcasm.
It's not sarcasm. I want to go back.
This is honestly the best neighborhood, I think, in the city. If you look it up, you'll see either on Rick Steves' guides or different people, this is a great neighborhood. It's a very local neighborhood. There's
It's got
really good restaurants.
Big time Brooklyn vibes.
Big time Brooklyn vibes. It is a walk to all the major sites. Whether you're going to the Vatican,
That was really cool.
the Colosseum, or anywhere, you do have to walk 20 to 30 minutes to get to the major sites. But for us, we loved that. It was totally worth it. This is a vibrant part of the city.
Big time nightlife.
Great nightlife, great restaurants.
If I were 18
Yeah.
again, I would immediately go there.
I mean, I would
Yeah.
move to this city
Yeah.
and be like, I'm going to live here for
I'm just going to work
the
and
rest of
rage.
my life.
Yeah.
And this was the beauty of having so much time in Rome, was that the first day we were able to explore. We had coffee in that neighborhood. We walked up to a viewpoint that, again, it's another thing that you barely even want to share because it's
Well, that was cool too,
quiet.
because there was kind of a secret hike through the woods.
Yes.
And I was sort of shocked because we somehow found woods in Rome.
Yes.
And it was just this nice little park on an incline up to this fountain that had a pretty epic overlook of the city where you could start to see, oh, that's the Pantheon, that's the Colosseum. Those are just other random ruins. Really cool spot, and probably one of the more underrated ones because I had no idea about it until you showed us, and it was right down the block from us.
Yeah, and it's actually called the Fountain dell'Acqua Paola.
Yeah, I think it's a Renaissance fountain.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it has absolutely insane views of downtown Rome where you are actually up really, really high in the hills above the city and you're looking down. And from this viewpoint, you can see the Vatican. You can see the Colosseum really far off in the distance. You can even see like where the Roman Forum is sort of set up. You can see all of Rome, all the domes, all the basilicas. It was really incredible. And again, just like we did in Florence, it was really cool to have a bird's eye view to start before you kind of dive into the nitty gritty of the city.
Oh yeah, big time. I like that about it too.
Yes. That first night we were there, we went to a place called Mama Eat, which was
Mama Eat.
I'm not going to say every single restaurant we ate at, but I will kind of go over the outliers. This was an outlier because it was actually our first and worst meal, I think, that we had in Rome.
It was very run of the mill. It was very, we realized later, I think there's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And it kind of felt like a chain restaurant.
Like an Applebee's version of Italian food.
It was good. It was fine, but it was, yeah, exactly. It was one of those places where you sort of got the sense, because there's so many places in Italy where it's assumed that the food is fresh.
Yes.
That's sort of a given. You just kind of go in knowing that. And if it's not fresh, amazingly enough, they'll say it on their menus. They'll say these foods sometimes are frozen to let you know, which is so wildly different than here in America, where everything's just frozen, whatever bullshit. There, it's part of the expectation of the experience and the dietary reality of how they live. So Mama Eat was the first place I think I remember eating at where I sort of realized, oh, this is what's happening in terms of some of these items not being as fresh. It was still good, but it wasn't as outrageously awesome as some of our other experiences.
And like I said last week, spoiler alert, going forward, this was probably the only meal in Rome that we had that I didn't think was like really impressive and really outstanding.
It was also the first place on the cobblestone streets where cars were literally passing within, I don't know, what do they use in a metric system? Centimeters, millimeters?
No idea.
Whatever. 2 American units, 2 inches, literally within inches of you. And because they just do whatever. They ride scooters through the street, they ride cars, they're walking. There's no rules in this country.
There is live music, people walking by playing live music. There's
the atmosphere and ambiance is cool. I mean, that sense,
this area again, Trastevere, where we stayed and where we ate, was really incredible. And even if you didn't have the best meal, the atmosphere, you cannot beat it, in my opinion. In Rome, it was just wonderful.
Yeah, and that's that whole neighborhood. Every restaurant is sort of like that. Really cool spot.
Really cool spot. So that was kind of our first day in Rome. Our second day, we had a completely free morning, which was great. And we went to the Colosseum that night. And we went to the Colosseum at around 5:40, which was PM, which was one of the very last appointments that you can make at the Colosseum. And it was really wonderful.
Yeah, I think that was when we started to realize as well that most sightseeing endeavors, you want to go either really early or really late. And we typically like really early because you're the first ones there. Especially in the summer, it's cooler, it's less crowded. You're not going to be delayed because there's lines of people already there later in the day. And I'm not a morning person, but we said this about the Duomo in Florence. I think if it's a spectacular sight, it's worth getting up for, obviously. And it's not like, you have to necessarily go crazy early, but you can do the same thing going later. The problem with that is you can miss things because by the time we wanted to go to the Roman Forum, which is right next door to the Colosseum, it was closed for the day. They had stopped letting people in. So you got to make sure, and sometimes it's not as clear when the hours are, but we made that up later, obviously, going back.
We were really lucky because we did schedule a completely free day at the very end of the trip, and we decided to go back to the Roman Forum that day, which I'm so glad we did because a lot of people do the Colosseum, Palantine Hill, Roman Forum all in one day, and it's doable.
Yeah, the Forum in Palantine Hill is bigger than people think, I think.
The amount of walking would have been insane. Yeah. So I would definitely, if you have the time, recommend splitting these two things up.
So what's your grade for the Colosseum?
Our experience, the time of day that we went where it wasn't super crowded, we had a lot of shade because the sun was setting. Yeah. It was honestly,
it's also cooler in there with something about the stones or marble or what. I think it's I don't know if it's marble anymore because I know they stripped away a lot
Yeah.
of marble over the years. But anyways, something about being inside that stone, this is true in a lot of places in Italy, is it's cooler.
They make
It keeps
like
cool, which is
natural
really nice.
air conditioning.
Yeah.
With where the windows are and where
So how do you
the
grade the
alleys
Colosseum?
are. For me, I had very low expectations of the Colosseum, just like I did in Rome. I thought that the Colosseum is built up so much as this tourist trap,
Yeah.
tourist attraction. But to me, it exceeded all of my expectations at the time of day we went, when we went, how much space we had to kind of explore. It wasn't super crowded. I thought it lived up to all my expectations. I would give it an A of one of the really coolest places I've seen.
Yeah, I would give it an A as well because I was so hyped to see the Colosseum. I was so hyped to see all of Rome because that's something I mentioned to you about why I wanted to go to Italy, because it was the first place I ever realized I think I was in fifth or sixth grade history class, and we were going over ancient Rome. And I was like, wait, isn't that a place in Italy though? And then I started looking into it and I realized, oh, you can still go there. Some of this stuff is still there. And once I made that connection, it was one of my earliest connections where I really loved history. And I thought, I really want to go to that place and actually see this shit. And so the Colosseum's been in my mind as early as I can remember thinking about travel. And we've traveled so many places already. So talk about being hyped up in my mind.
Yeah.
And getting there. So to me, I explained the experience a little bit different to my brother. I said, it's almost as if because it's less impressive than I thought it would be, it's more impressive. Which doesn't really make sense saying it out loud, but I think what I'm trying to say with that is that it's not a huge building. Like, it is a big building in of itself, but most apartment buildings are taller. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right. Our modern skyscrapers are
Not, the Colosseum isn't even close.
Yeah.
But there's something, especially if you're a history nerd like me and you love learning all of that and knowing all of that and understanding the context, and even just knowing that some people built this thing 2,000 years ago.
And it's standing.
Well, half of it is.
Half of it is.
Because you always see pictures of the Colosseum and you see the half that's still standing. Half of the building is gone, essentially.
Yeah.
It's pretty much collapsed, but the superstructure base level is pretty much intact, or at least most of it is. So there's something really interesting about the fact that you can see what it would have looked like in its full form still, because that half is still upright, but the other half has collapsed. I think it collapsed in an earthquake 400 or 500 years ago. I forget where I read that, but it was something along those lines in terms of time frame. But just the lasting glimmers of magnificence stands out to me so much, and thinking how much more impressive it would have looked at the time, and realizing, well, this is still really impressive. And imagine if all the statues were still there and it was a total complete circle and all the seats were in place, and you realize, yeah, you could fit 50,000 people in here screaming as dudes are stabbing lions and fighting bears, and there's arrows and chariots and stuff. It's really unbelievable. It's really something that I mean, we'll talk about some tourist traps we did see, I think, in the next week or two. But this was not one of them.
No.
This was lived up to all expectations for me.
The other thing I would really recommend about the Colosseum is to do your research on your own and do not do a guided tour.
No, not necessary. For the Colosseum.
Go in.
Some places I think you should.
Yes.
I don't think the Colosseum is one of them.
The Colosseum, you could take your time. You can look where you want to look, and you really get a feel. There's something in the air in Rome,
insane.
And
you realize that
Colosseum.
Julius Caesar was right there.
Yes,
Augustus
and the
was
seats
right there.
Are intact. It's really quite an experience that you don't get anywhere in America. You don't get that scope of history here because we've rebuilt. We haven't preserved our ancient artifacts this way. It really
we paved over them.
Right. We made parking lots and malls.
Yeah. Well, I got to get my gear for Italy.
I mean,
where else?
I got to go to Dick's
Amazon.
Sporting Goods.
Yeah. Right.
I got to go to Lowe's and Home Depot. Come
Obviously.
on. Like, right?
No.
We made Starbucks. But I mean, it really was incredible. I agree. A for the Colosseum.
And you know what was not an A? The walk home from the Colosseum.
No, it was not. Great segue.
Yeah. So what happened?
So we thought it would be great to walk past the Circus Maximus on the way back to see more of history because we were in the mood.
Which is the big chariot arena right next to the Colosseum, essentially, along the River Tiber. Which, might as well walk by that, right?
As we're approaching it, though, it started to get more and more crowded.
Yeah. And I said, wow, a lot of people were going home from the Coliseum today.
Yes. I'm like, what's going on? And we're tired. We had already walked 20,000 steps.
And eventually we just hit sort of a barricade and there's just people everywhere drinking.
And we got
mansplained.
We got mansplained. We learned that they use the Circus Maximus as a concert venue, and there was a band called Manskin that is very popular in Europe that was playing that night, and they were not starting that concert until like 10 p.m. and it was like 5 o'clock. Not really. It was like 7.
No, it was early. It was like, maybe it was 6 or 7. Yeah.
6 or 7,
yeah,
which 7, in Italy is a very early time. It's like before they even have dinner.
They're seating tables in Rome till like midnight. It's crazy.
Yeah. So honestly, it was really funny because we got stuck in the tailgate of the concert.
Yeah. And we had to do this whole crazy loop around. And we wound up adding like an extra, I don't know, mile and a half.
Yeah.
And we were so dead by the time we got back to the Airbnb. But
what did save us was that night we had our best meal that we had in Rome.
Was it Othello?
Yes.
Otello?
Otello. Yes.
Otello, I will say, best meatballs I had in Italy.
Yes. We had meatballs and I had raviolis. It was
really good.
Yeah. Again, eat in the neighborhood we stayed in. Trastevere,
you kind of can't miss with a lot of those restaurants. I feel
so good. Yeah.
But that one in particular had because that's my metric. If you can't do spaghetti and meatballs well, get real.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they crushed it on the spaghetti and meatballs. I love when meatballs are sort of moist and soft, but a little sort of well cooked on the outside. I like that contrast, and they crushed it. A-grade meatballs.
We had another great bottle of wine. The raviolis were great, and we had rice balls, which is
what are those called? Spiegel's, Spiolis.
I have it written down somewhere. We'll get to it.
I could just Google it, but anyways.
We'll get to it. So that is another traditional dish in Rome that was really delicious. They're basically rice balls with mozzarella, and it was a really great meal, a really great day.
Yeah, A grade. A minus because of mansplain.
Yes, that's true. That's true. The next day we did Central Rome. What I think a lot of people will group together is what we did. We saw the Trevi Fountain, the Spanish Steps, the Pantheon,
McDonald's,
the Area Sacra, and the church Saint Ignazio.
Saint Ignazio. Yeah.
And wow, it was a really, really great morning. It was really, really hot, but we were able to kind of stick to the shady sides of the streets.
Yeah.
And going in churches is a great way to cool down and also to see some incredible, incredible art. And
the churches that they just have.
Architecture.
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead with churches.
Oh, just the fact that they're so casually strewn about the city. You just go on a block and you say, well, that's the biggest church I've ever seen now. And then you turn another block and you say, well, now that's the biggest church I've ever seen. And the architecture and artwork inside is just, they're all Sistine Chapels, basically.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's worth walking into every single church that you can walk into.
As you go past the church, peek your head inside because they don't seem to care either.
No.
They could be in the middle of mass. People are just going in and out.
Yeah. It was.
Don't be a jerk. Like, don't go in and start being, oh, look at that. Oh.
And then,
they don't mind if you wander in, wander out.
Absolutely. We had McDonald's. This was where we had McDonald's, which if you're interested in that, we won't get into it here. Just go to our YouTube channel.
Yeah,
where
just
we
search
have
A-grade podcast on YouTube and you'll get our McDonald's alla Roma review.
And very quickly, Pantheon, you loved it.
I loved the Pantheon. It's kind of simple in some ways. It's a big building, though.
Yes.
And when I say it's simple, I mean it's a dome. It's a single dome structure. But the fact that that still exists, and I forget if it's the biggest dome of its type, or it was certainly the first and longest lasting for quite some time. But the coolest thing to me about the Pantheon, and it's absolutely beautiful, the stonework, the architecture in there, but it's a single dome in the middle, and in the center of the middle of the dome, they call it the Oculus. And it's this just hole in the ceiling, and it lets in this perfect circle of light that moves throughout the day, throughout the Pantheon. And that to me was, it looks stunning. It's so impressive. And to think, again, wow, imagine if I was in ancient times and I saw this, I would say, yeah, I believe in all these gods, whatever.
Amazing.
It was so cool. I think I read, or you read as well, that the floor is the original floor as well.
Yes.
And again, that's another crazy thing to think. Yeah, emperors were walking around here priests, common people, everybody, name them. They were stepping on the same floor. Something about sitting in there is very, it just kind of slows you down. I think I just sat in there for maybe 10, 15 minutes, just sitting. And that was it, because you're just so almost overwhelmed by the context of it all. Really cool. Highly recommend. Again, that's another one, especially if it's hot. Get too early. I mean, we had the first tickets and we still were online, but we got in pretty quick, luckily.
And at the Pantheon, the line is not at all in the shade. So there is no relief. So make sure you get there
people
early.
were online trying to buy tickets.
Yes.
And they started to hear from other people up front that, there are no tickets.
You have to buy your tickets in advance.
Well, it depends on the time of year, I'm sure. But if you're going in summer, be forewarned. It's definitely worth making a priority, but you got to plan ahead for that one.
Absolutely. So our dinner that night was at another great restaurant in Trastevere. Another great restaurant there called Tonarello.
Oh, God, the Rellos.
I know. We did go to 2 restaurants that we got kind of annoyed because
we got duped.
They are definitely owned by the same people.
Yeah, one's called Tonarella and one's called Nonarella.
And it's the same.
And when Jackie, the next night we went to Nonarella, Jackie goes, I think this is the same menu.
And they're both so high rated.
And I said, wait, you mean like they have the same items? They both serve ravioli and meatballs and lasagna? No. It's the exact same printout. And I think you were right.
Yes,
so
it was.
I don't know what was going on with the Rellas. They were good.
They were both good.
But I felt duped.
Yeah, we felt a little duped, which kind of shaded the experience a little bit, but the food was still delicious and the atmosphere was even better.
The food in Rome in general was pretty fantastic.
Really good.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. The next day was our day to explore the Vatican.
Oh, God, that shit show.
Vatican Day was my worst day in Rome.
It was so hot.
The Vatican is so hot.
Well, in the summer again. But
yeah.
It's not so much that it's hot, it's that it's crowded.
Yes.
And the inside of the Vatican, I think my favorite part of the Vatican is actually the hallways that you walked through.
Right.
Throughout the Vatican on the way to the stupid Sistine Chapel, which, I wasn't impressed, honestly. I know people are going to freak out that I say I wasn't impressed by the Sistine Chapel. I thought the Duomo in Florence was more impressive. And it's not as if, I don't know, I spent more time in one than the other. I mean, we didn't spend much time in the Sistine Chapel because they were just basically yelling at us to move through.
I think the problem with it was what I was saying with seeing like the David statue or whatever in Florence, is that when there are that many people in a space, and we got to the Sistine Chapel and you were sardines in a can where you were literally shoulder to shoulder with people being ushered along and yelled at, you can't stop and breathe and look at the scope of the history and look at Michelangelo's art and the what is it called? The Adam and Eve one?
Oh, the creation of man or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Michelangelo would, if you were looking down from the roof of the Sistine Chapel and he saw that shit show, he would be like, what are you guys doing? Go home.
I know.
Why are you here? And it's not that
so
good.
hot. Yeah, it's so hot in there because there's no air conditioning in the walkways. And there's so much art, but there's so many people that it was really unenjoyable.
Do you think that you would have liked it way better if we had gone in, say, February?
Yeah.
When it's not as crowded?
Yes.
I think so too.
If I had time to look at the ceiling.
I think so too. But again, at the same time, I still think there's so much else there. Yeah, it's famous, it's great, but it's not like some of these other famous great places that were crowded. I mean, the Colosseum was still crowded. Mm-hmm. The Pantheon was still crowded.
But not nearly as crowded as the Vatican.
I mean, the Vatican was ridiculous.
It was about 10 times the amount of people being ushered through the Vatican.
Well, I think what miffed me most about the Vatican was that a lot of places said, so the Pantheon, for example, had a dress code. It was kind of reasonable. It said, all right, you can't wear basically a bathing suit to the inside the Pantheon.
You have to have your knees and your shoulders covered.
I was like, whatever, I can deal with that. The Vatican had very strict rules, and it basically said that I needed to wear jeans, which in Roman summer is not fun.
110 degrees.
I don't know if it was 110 degrees, but it was hot as hell. And I wore jeans. There's tons of people in basically bathing suits.
Guys are wearing bathing suits. They didn't care.
They didn't give a crap.
Short shorts.
There was more security. This is another thing that I don't like about America. There's a lot of things that I like better about America, having been to Italy, but there's a lot of things that I don't. And one of the things I don't is that it was easier and way faster to get through security at the Vatican, which I would have thought would be the craziest security of any venue to try to get into. There was way less security there than there was last summer when we went to a Seattle Mariners baseball game.
I wasn't allowed to bring
Washington.
my bag into the Seattle Mariners game. I had to buy a locker on the street to put my small purse in, where at the Vatican, I just walked in with nothing. I was in the Sistine Chapel with
so different.
1,000 people.
I mean, I get
and a
security. I get that you have to have security, but yeah, the purse thing is just check the purse. What are you going to get drunk and throw things on the field? That sounds hilarious. Whatever.
Like,
I don't know. I feel like Americans are just like paranoid for good reasons in some ways, but
Yeah.
overly paranoid in other ways. There's almost this unspoken trauma, and we haven't really quite dealt or processed it because
Probably because it's still happening. There's still problems in
Yeah.
America that they don't have in Italy.
I think America needs a therapist.
Yes.
That's what I think. But who's going to
Hot
pay
take.
for that? Pull
Yeah.
yourself up by your bootstraps.
Why don't
State
they
ain't
use all
paying
the
for it.
student loan money?
Yeah,
to
state
pay
ain't
for it?
paying for it. Anyways, yeah, so that was the Vatican. That was my impression.
Luckily that night we decided to stay at home and cook in because we were really tired and really hot from the Vatican, and that was a really nice, relaxing way to end a really busy day.
Yep.
Okay. The next day we went to Catacombs, which were
Ooh.
a little bit outside of the city.
So that was cool because I think we took the Appian Way, which was
Yes.
the old school, basically main highway, I believe, into the city. And it was cool. It was this old road and old walls. We got to see the old Roman walls around
Yes.
the city. That was really cool. And the catacombs themselves were awesome. I'm so glad we took the ride, whatever it was, 15, 20 minutes
Yes.
outside of the city to go see that.
Yeah, and a quick history corner.
Oh, do I have to cue the music?
Cue the music.
Oh, okay.
You got it, Mr. Editor Man.
It's playing. It's playing.
We learned a lot about the catacombs. All of the catacombs are outside of the city completely.
Most of them, I think. Yeah.
Most of them.
Yeah.
Well, the one that we went to, which was the catacombs of St. Calexis, there were actually 8 popes that were buried there throughout the time and 1 saint. The popes that were buried there were later moved and taken out, but this actual catacomb was abandoned for centuries before it was completely scavenged by barbarians.
Well, and they moved a lot of the buried people before that because the guy said that basically barbarians would come and take bones and stuff and try to sell them as relics,
Right.
essentially. So I feel as if I learned probably more history there than anywhere else because I tried to look up what a catacomb is, and I knew it was an underground burial, but I couldn't make the connection as to what exactly we were going to see until we actually went there.
Right.
And it makes sense because I do know, at least relatively speaking, a fair amount of history and ancient history. And it all made so much sense how it was basically, well, in the early days during the Roman Empire, Christians didn't want to, and at certain points weren't allowed to be buried near pagans, so they buried them outside the city. That's how a lot of these catacombs got started.
So you explained that way better than me. Good job, History Corner.
Oh, God, you roped me into History Corner.
Good job.
God damn it. And yeah, basically that's it. And that's why there were early popes there, because it was back when popes were, being martyred left and right, I guess. I don't know. And they would bury some of them in these catacombs too.
Yeah, and the one we went to, there were actually 500,000 people buried there. And it was
we're talking lots of people
really,
over the
really
years. Yeah.
big catacomb. And
You could see the slots in the walls.
Yes.
And you would go downstairs and levels, and that's where they would put the people.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's definitely worth, if you have time in Rome, to kind of go outside the city, see the catacombs. This is where you do a guided tour.
Yeah.
You get really good information. You really can't go in without the guided tour.
Yeah, it's necessary.
It's necessary.
Oh, we would have gotten lost.
Yeah. And they
It's
actually
terrifying.
say that. They're like,
He kind of
make sure
joked
you stay
and
close.
Yeah, he's like, keep up. And I kind of joked because that's something that you would say in America. And then there was a certain point where we were at the very back with this older couple who was kind of going slow.
Yes.
And we turned a corner and there was nobody there. And I was kind of trying to prod them forward because I'm thinking we need to see at this intersection if they went left or right.
Yeah.
Because if they do another left or right before we get there, we might be in trouble.
Yeah.
But we caught up.
We did catch up, and that was a great morning. And that morning was followed up by 2 great meals. I'm going to mention the names of both of the places because I would definitely recommend our listeners, if you're in Rome, check them out. The first one was a place called Levion. This is a bakery.
I don't remember that.
We went there twice to get cold brew.
Oh, was that
They
the place?
had
Yeah.
phenomenal cold brew
Yeah.
and phenomenal pastries.
Great cold brew, yeah.
It is a bakery, though. You're not going to get food there. You're going to get desserts. So it was great for like a 3 p.m. pick-me-up. We had cold brew. We had a little
Which wasn't a big thing in
pastry.
Italy, cold brew, but where we found it, they were crushing it.
They were so good.
And that was one of the places I remember that now, yeah.
Yeah, so big shout out. Again, this is in the Trastevere
Trastevere.
area.
I don't know if that's how you say it.
Again. And then that night, we walked to Piazza Novana and we looked around at all the fountains, which are very, very famous and worth seeing. And we did this later at night, which is also worth it. As the sun is setting, all the musicians come out on the streets. So the walk there from Trastevere.
Oh, was this the place across the river?
Yes.
Where they were making pasta?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So again, going out and exploring Rome at around 8 p.m. with that late dinner, the city comes alive.
Yes.
I've never
With people and mosquitoes.
seen anything like it. It was one of my favorite moments of my life was walking through Piazza Novana at 8 p.m., walking to dinner, and the streets are alive. Musicians are out. Everybody's out having dinner. People are just happy. It was just such a great vibe.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing worth mentioning is that I think that the laws are basically that you can walk around drinking whatever, whenever, because I know people will say stuff like this as an exaggeration. Oh, yeah, there were people walking around at 9 a.m. with wine. No, there actually were people walking around at 9 a.m. every day with wine and beer.
Yeah.
Don't know how or why. And then throughout the day, you would see, it's not as if the whole city was, but you would see people just hanging out.
Everyone's chilling.
Doing whatever. And then as the day continues, you get more and more of that until nighttime. It's just everybody's out raging, which is kind of cool.
And the restaurant that we went to was called Pantheon.
I'll take your word for it. I'll take your pronunciation.
Yeah,
for it.
it's really great. They make homemade pasta right there in front of you.
Yeah, it's in the middle of the restaurant. She's just cranking out pasta, which is amazing.
Yeah, another incredible meal in Rome to end our night. Okay, our very last day we slept in. We must have been very tired, but we went to Palantine Hill and the Roman Forum.
Yeah, which took quite some time. So I'm glad we factored in that extra day because we figured, well, maybe we'll see something on the way that we say, oh, I wish we had time to do. And luckily that was the one that we didn't have time to do the basically first day we were there, and we got back to it.
So worth it to have a day where we weren't doing this and the Colosseum because we were able to really take our time. We saw all the palaces, the temples, the churches, the statues, the shops.
Really cool.
So much.
It's the old Roman downtown, basically, the Roman Forum, and it's right next to the Colosseum. It's actually kind of between the Colosseum and the Circus Maximus.
Yes. And my favorite spot was the viewpoints up really, really high on top of Palantine Hill where you can see the whole forum below.
Also, if you go to our Instagram, you can see pictures and video reels of everything we're talking about. So just even if you don't have an Instagram account, I think you can still search maybe on Instagram.com, but just look for A Grade Podcast there.
And if you're a Patreon subscriber, I will have this all on the Patreon shared drive.
Patreon.com/A Grade Podcast. Like, share, and shamelessly self-promote.
And of course, because we love Trastevere. So much.
You just kind of trail off with your accent. Trastevere.
Yeah. Because we love that neighborhood so much, we had dinner there for our last night. We found a really quiet spot called Insalata Riccia. It was a little off the beaten path. It was a little restaurant in a really quiet area, which you don't always get. It was good, not great, but it was nice. We didn't have to wait online for food, which you do a lot in Rome.
No idea which I have no memory of what you're talking about, so it must have been just all right.
There was a really hyperactive waiter.
Really?
And a baby crying behind us.
I blocked that all from my mind. I was so hot for so long in Italy.
We were really tired.
I think I burnt out some brain cells while I was there, so I might have just purged that memory from my mind because I don't remember that at all.
So that was basically our Rome experience. Summarized. You know, we ate a lot. We walked a lot. We sweat a lot. We saw a lot of history. But man, Rome.
So, 4 grading categories.
Yes.
What do you think for the first one, atmosphere and ambiance? You want to start?
Yeah, I'll start because I will say it right now and I will say it proudly that Rome was my absolute favorite city that we went to in Italy. I loved Rome. I loved the grittiness of it. I loved the graffiti everywhere.
Oh, I forgot about that graffiti everywhere. It's kind of not even that it's accepted. It's almost I don't know if it's promoted, but I know from reading about Roman history, it was a big part of the culture. People would do all sorts of graffiti for all sorts of reasons, and you still see people doing it today.
I loved the fact that not everybody loves it or understands it.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been to a city that had this juxtaposition of history and present life all in one.
Yeah.
Where the streets are so alive with locals and tourists and music and restaurants and waiters and restaurants and bars, but also you turn every corner and see ruins, or you walk down the street and you're sitting on a column instead of a bench.
Yeah, that was really cool too. Literally ancient columns that just fell over that people just use as park benches basically.
And the food, I know that's a different category, but like it does impact my atmosphere and ambiance. I mean, I loved Rome.
So what did you think of Rome?
The good and the bad.
Did you like it?
And for me, the atmosphere and ambiance is an A. It was an awesome city. And I know you're going to fight that grade, but
Yep.
I loved all the bad parts of
Yep.
it. I loved all the bad parts of it. I loved all the good. Rome was so cool. I want to go back there more than anywhere else that we went on this trip and dive deeper into like the not so touristy spots and see what else the city has to offer.
So I agree with all of that, save one factor, which is why I'm going to give Rome an A-. Because
Right to my heart.
Hey, look, most of what you
That was an emotional grade.
when you're right, and I think all of that is very accurate. It's an amazing city. I love as I said, it was the first place I ever wanted to visit, and it basically lived up to, if not exceeded, my expectations, which is amazing. However, the trash there, man. And people had told me that there's a lot of garbage in Rome, and I thought, yeah, there's a lot of garbage in New York City. So what's the difference? But and this probably happens more often than we realize, but there was one point where a street was literally roped off with caution tape, and you kind of looked down it and you said, what's happening there? And I said, I think they closed off that street just to bulldoze the trash. And they literally had a bulldozer just pushing the trash down to the end and bulldozing it up. If they cleaned up that city a little bit better, and there were people who would go around cleaning, but they're understaffed. If they put a little more effort, a little more denarii into cleaning up that city, I think solid A. But because it's such a party city, that's kind of part of the cost.
Yeah, there is a lot of beer cans everywhere.
I would people watch from the balcony at 2 a.m. sometimes if I got up to go to the bathroom, and you would see just kids dancing in the street in the middle of the night. And then you see them leave a beer bottle on a car or something. And eventually some guy the next day would pick them up, but you don't get everything.
Yeah.
And different parts of the city obviously get more attention than others. So yeah, there is some areas that are just apocalyptically trashy. So I'm going to have to give A- for the atmosphere and ambiance, because you know what? I can imagine it being a little cleaner, and I'm there with you. I'm at the A
and
then.
I was going to go A- maybe for the same reasons, but then I was thinking, if you love a place or have an experience that you love enough to overlook all the bad, where the bad doesn't even matter, and it just to me
what's your trash threshold? How much trash would there have to be?
Rome is gritty.
How much trash would there have to be for you to give an A-? A foot, 2 feet, 6 feet?
Maybe if we would have.
What if you're swimming through it?
I think if I would have stayed in a different neighborhood, it would have been A-.
Yeah, that's true. If we were across the river where it's a little more kind of just bleh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Bleh city.
Yeah. Staying where we stayed gave me
I did love one other thing, speaking to the atmosphere and ambience, that I loved was when we finally got to the Palantine Hill, or rather Roman Forum, and we were walking around, we left, and I said, shit, I should have looked up where Julius Caesar was assassinated, because I know that it wasn't in the Senate house, because the Senate house was under repairs, I think, and it was in a nearby structure. And I said, I wonder where it was, if it was in the Roman Forum. And when we got back to the Airbnb and we looked it up, we said, wait a minute, we walked past these ruins. It was actually like maybe a 10-minute walk northwest.
just
And
random on the street.
We had walked past it, and it's just these crumpled kind of remains, not even a full building. And we said it was kind of fenced off, and we said, those are some cool ruins. I wonder what those were. And we just kept walking. It was on the way to the Pantheon and Trevi Fountain and all that. Turns out that's where Julius Caesar was stabbed. Yeah. That's what I mean. You just find crazy stuff like that, and that's really cool for a city.
What a cool city.
Yeah. So what about service? I start.
You start. Good.
Service, it is a city, so it does have more of that kind of city, not like rush mentality, but yeah, sort of. I don't know. I mean, the service was overall pretty good. There were a couple of good, like really good experiences. I really liked the place where they handmade the pasta. The waiter there was super cool. This is sort of what we were talking about last episode, where the culture seems a little bit different in Italy, where you sort of oftentimes have a bunch of different waiters who just come by, people do what they need to do when it needs to be done. But yeah, I mean, that was sort of one of the best experiences, where he kind of talked to us a little bit where we're from. And that's sort of what we really like, is being able to talk to people and interact with them. So I don't remember there being a ton of that, but in general, everybody who, or most of the people who I interacted with, were very friendly. They were very nice. They were very willing to put up with me pretending to know Italian.
Do you remember how awesome the guy was that at the gelato place called Elsa?
Yeah.
And he was just so nice, and
that's what I mean.
Let us try all different kinds of gelato.
He had a funny hat on, and he was just telling us all about the gelato.
He reminded me of Steve Harrington at Chips Ahoy.
Oh my God, he was Italian Steve Harrington.
He reminded me of that a lot.
Oh my God, he so was. And he had a tip jar that said, I think it said funds
to Hawaii
go to Hawaii.
Fund. Yeah.
And I thought that was so adorable.
Yeah, we gave him a really big tip.
I came back. I didn't have change on me, and I came back down from the Airbnb. And I was like, "Oh, change for you." And he said, "Oh, you don't need to do that." And I said, "Yeah, I do."
So what do you think grade wise?
Service, I'm gonna go. I think, especially thinking about, because we're grading this based on our city experience, and that could be comparing it to cities in America or anywhere else we go. But also thinking about how it fits in with Italy, I thought it was definitely above average compared to some other experiences. So I'm gonna go B+. I thought it was really a really good experience, and we had some of those very specific little experiences where people were very receptive and open and interested in talking to us. So I thought it was really good.
Some really good conversations in Rome, and what took me from a B to a B+.
Oh, you're B+ too?
Was yes.
Okay.
From service was the fact that our Airbnb host was so incredible. And
she was great.
Met us.
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of put that in with service.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah.
Met us at the Airbnb, showed us around the apartment, gave us such good recommendations for food.
Asked us like
where to go.
What you had planned. What did we have planned? So in case we were missing something,
yes,
she had and she had a whole list of recommendations for all things for us to check out.
Really helpful map.
We didn't know the rice ball thing.
No, right.
And she told us, she said, yeah, you got to get the rice balls.
Supli. It just came to me.
Molto supli.
Supli. Yeah.
Supli is amazing.
Yes. So that gave me a B+.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. So that leads us to food.
Food.
What do you think?
So I'm normally a really harsh grader, to be honest. And when we go back to grading craft beer breweries and coffee roasters, I think my grades are going to be a lot lower.
Oh, but yeah, big time.
I can't imagine giving Rome anything less than an A. I think that our food in Rome was, again, my favorite of the trip. We had so many good meals. I mean, Otello, Ponti, and Peroni.
Yeah.
The bakery, Levion, the coffee things that we had.
The
gelato place. I mean,
Cacio Pepe.
How many times do we have cacio pepe, which is cheese and pepper, a pasta dish that I really didn't find anywhere else.
It's so simple, but it's so good. It's pasta with cheese and pepper.
Every meal was homemade. Every single meal was homemade.
Also,
remember we went to Gisilda.
The pizza place, little pizza place on the corner. You get a beer, you get a bunch of slices, no flop,
and the food
amazing. Probably, I think that was my favorite pizza in Italy.
Yeah,
it was
I had the zucchini pizza. And
it was good.
And the prices in Rome are
cheapest
so
prices. Yeah,
cheap. You can get such good, high quality meal for so inexpensive. Same like Florence, kind of.
Yeah.
But I thought the food in Rome was even better than Florence.
I thought so too.
And for me, it was definitely an A. I think it's the best food city I've been to in my life. I've never been to a place where every meal was as good as it was.
All right, you convinced me. I'm gonna go A for food.
Whee!
Yeah. No, I mean, I
mean,
I
you
would
can't
just
beat it.
I would just be being an asshole if I said, oh, well, I would have liked more souplies on every corner. It's like,
Free
no,
souplies.
go to hell. Like,
And
suck an egg.
Suck a Roman egg.
Suck a Roman goose egg. What? You still don't believe me about the Roman goose
No.
eggs? Okay.
And I think that there are a million other restaurants that we didn't even get to try that are probably just as good.
Yeah. All right. So that leads us to drink.
Yes, you start us off.
Drink. So, okay. It's all coming back to me now. As soon as I said drink, I was like processing, because I have to think about the wine. I have to think about the beer. There was not a lot of beer, but the Peroni is really good. Obviously, it's fresh there. I remember having really good wine. Coffee though.
Cold brew?
So the cold brew was outstanding. Some of the best cold brew I've ever had.
Yeah, definitely A-grade cold brew.
However, we did go to a coffee roaster. I think it was a coffee roaster.
We found one coffee roaster.
I forget, what was it called?
Barnum.
And man.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought this up.
Man.
I didn't bring it up in the recap.
Man, so one of the things we obviously, if you're listeners of the podcast, I look for pour overs, which is an open vessel brewing method. A lot of people have different opinions on pour overs. I love them when they're done well. When they're done well, you get such a fresh experience of specific types of beans. Whatever. That's why I look for them. I think they're great when they're done well. When they're not done well, it's basically just like a house drip coffee, getting a regular black coffee. So sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes it's not. If they know what they're doing, it's definitely worth it, in my opinion. We saw that they offer pour overs. So we go, and it's a little busy. I kind of have a cutoff if a place is busy enough where I say I'm not going to order the pour over, just because it takes maybe to do it well, it takes 5 to 10 minutes probably to set everything up and actually brew it. And if it's super busy, I don't want to be that guy. This was right at that border. And I said, you know what? I'm in Italy, though. I'm going to order it. They have it on their menu. And I'm of that mindset, too. If you're not going to do something, don't have it on your menu. It shouldn't be on your menu. That's false advertising.
That's really fair.
Well, and you know what?
Like episode 1, wood-fired bagels.
Oh, God, you're going back to the coffee peddler.
1.
But you know what? If you feel as a business, hey, we're only going to do it when it's slow, say that on your menu. Put an asterisk. Say pending, however many busyness or something. I don't know how to phrase that. I would be fine with that. That's fine to me. And if you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it, whatever. And that's basically what happened. I asked for the pour over, and the guy said, oh, which one do you want? And I said, well, I'll try that one. And he goes, oh, well, it's really not any different than the house strip. And I said, really? And he goes, oh, yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Again, some people will argue it is the same thing. I argue if you know what you're doing, I don't buy that, because I've had, I don't know how many pour overs, how many roasters have we been to? 100? Yeah. Between the podcast when we started and our road trip where we would go to another couple of roasters every day. I've had all variety of pour overs, and I just don't buy that if it's done really well.
No, it's trying to get one over on us.
No, it's fine. It's like he didn't want to make it.
Yeah.
Because whatever, either he felt like he either just didn't want to deal with it because they were busy, and or he doesn't think that it's as good. He doesn't either know how to do it, or he thinks the coffee isn't good enough to do it. Whatever the case is, I wound up getting just a regular drip coffee, and it was not good.
My latte, my cappuccino, if you remember, it was so undrinkable that I threw it out, and we went to a place by the Vatican and got real coffee that we liked.
Yeah, so I don't know what to say.
Sorry, Barnum.
It just wasn't good.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. It's nothing personal.
It just wasn't good.
I've had hundreds, thousands of coffees from America to Italy, and that was not good coffee.
It just wasn't good. So
what are you going to do? So that brings down my drink rate a little. That's to say that my drink rate goes down a little. So I'm going to go overall. I mean, again, you can get a great espresso or cappuccino pretty much anywhere that you go, and there's plenty of it everywhere. And I liked everything else. So I'm going to go A- for drink.
I was going to go B+, only because I felt like nothing really stood out to me drink-wise. Where
the cold brew.
The cold brew did. That's true.
Yeah, it was outstanding. I thought it was great. I also remember having some awesome cappuccinos there.
Some really good wine.
Yeah, really great wine. Yeah.
So maybe it should be an A-.
Nope, you said A-.
I said B+.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. But I feel like it could be A- or B+. Like, that's really fair.
All right. So what do we got for final letter grades, or for our tally?
Okay. So final report card. For atmosphere and ambiance, Joe gave an A-. I gave an A. For service, Joe gave a B+, I gave a B+. For food, we both gave an A. I think we were supposed to put fireworks in there.
Oh, no. Don't make me do it.
For drinks, Joe gave an A-.
You have no idea how long
gave
it takes to edit this stuff in. Hours.
I'll write it down for you.
No, you won't. You always say that.
I write it down and then I never tell you what I wrote down.
Let me do the thing where I scream into my shirt. Okay.
Yes. So, overall, do you know your grade?
I know my grade. 3, 2, 1.
I'm between 2.
You got to pick the one in your heart. You know how this goes.
Okay.
You got to go with your gut, just like the Romans did.
All right, I'm ready.
3, 2, 1.
Yes.
3, 2, 1. A-. Really?
Yeah.
I am shocked. Did you hear the tone of my voice?
You thought I was going to go A, right?
I thought you were going to go A.
So I was going.
I'm shocked.
I was going to go A, but
No, I'm not okay with this. I'm arguing with you now.
Why?
You should have gone A. How did you not go A? You said it's your favorite city.
It
so
is.
you can now never give every city you've ever visited is A- or less.
Well, what if I find a city that I love even more than Rome?
I don't think you will.
Well, every city that I visited should be A- or less.
Yes.
Like, I can't think of a city that I would give higher than an A-. Like, I think Florence and Rome are my 2 favorite cities I've ever been to in the world.
They're pretty sick. We kind of picked like the best cities.
Like, we're
to start
starting
with.
we're starting with the 2 best cities. Like, I wouldn't give
They're pretty
A- this easily, but I also would rank Rome higher than Florence.
Interesting.
Even so, they're both A-,
But
but
we're also grading it based on our experience. And I
experience.
think A- makes a lot of
like
sense
the
to me.
Vatican.
Well, again, it's an A- for my experience going to Rome in the middle of the summer. If we did that in, say, maybe a nicer weather time of year, maybe May in the spring when it's a little cooler, I might be able to overlook the trash
Right.
like you and give it an A. So I think that's actually, again, a really important distinction that the A- it's our Rome experience for going when we did, how we did. And again, if we did that or you do that very differently, different time of year, different amount of days, different area that you stay in, different sites, your letter grade might be very different. It might be in a similar range more often than not. It's not as if everybody who goes to Rome is going to say they're nuts, it's an F grade city, but that's sort of the importance behind the variety of factors, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like A- for me was appropriate, even though I love Rome and I would recommend everybody go there.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's an A- for our Rome experience by
You
A
heard it
Grade
here.
Podcast.
Last thing, real quick, best thing you would recommend, favorite thing from Rome.
Ooh, favorite thing from Rome, like for people to go do?
Yeah.
That's really tough. I would say if I had to pick one, I mean, it's so easy or cliche to say, oh, just go to the Colosseum or
It's
whatever.
not. It's
go to
worth
the
it. You're
Pantheon.
saying that it's worth it.
I would say, because those are the obvious things, I would say maybe something a little less obvious is to what we said earlier. If you see a church, go inside of it.
What a great recommendation.
Because
Saint Ignazio.
the one Saint Ignazio that we went into, from the outside you see it and you think that's a pretty cool looking church, but you're so sort of sensory overloaded by all the amazing architecture. That's like right by the Trevi Fountain.
It is, yes.
That it sort of didn't even register, and I almost didn't go in, and you luckily said, let's go, let's check it out. And we went inside and I was just blown away. It was by far the most magnificent church I've ever been to, including ones in New York City like St. Paul's, which are still obviously
and the Sistine
amazing.
Chapel.
Sistine Chapel. Yeah. So if you see a church, go in it. That's my advice for Italy in general, because we had that experience at other cities throughout Italy, but certainly for Rome. So what do you think for thing you would recommend?
I would recommend to stay in the city that we can't pronounce. Trastevere.
The town, the neighborhood.
Yes, the neighborhood.
Trastevere.
Trastevere. And I would recommend an off the beaten path thing. Take the walk up to the piazza by the fountain in Trastevere, and you will be blown away by the views of downtown Rome. It is a must see, in my opinion.
I agree with that.
If you only have 3 days in Rome, do it on the day that you have dinner in Trastevere neighborhood. Don't skip that.
You heard it here.
You heard it here.
All right. Well, I think that's it. That's Rome, baby.
That's Rome. When in Rome.
Awesome city. I mean, I'm so glad that we organized it the way we did too, starting in Florence, going to Rome, and continuing next week to
the beaches of Sorrento.
The beaches of Sorrento. So that's going to be an interesting one because it's quite a gear shift.
Yes.
we're headed south now.
We are going south.
We're going into new and strange territory.
To the sing-song south.
The sing-song south,
As your
baby.
dad says.
The sing-song south, y'all.
It's right, though. It's very true.
It's different.
We are going south, south, south to heading our way to the Amalfi Coast.
Yep, but Sorrento first.
A stop in Sorrento.
So I would definitely, well, thank you for listening, first of all.
Yeah, I know this was a long episode, but
Yeah.
Rome, there's so much
Rome
to
was
say.
worth it.
Rome
We'll
was
try
worth
to
it.
we'll try to keep it shorter next
Yes.
week. Thank you, patrons, Patreons, whatever you are.
You're in,
A-graders.
you're in Italy mode. Call them patrons. They're patron saints. Our
Okay.
Patreon saints.
Patreon saints. Thank you, our Patreon saints.
We've been in the Catholic catacombs.
We couldn't do it without you. I'm about to use your donations to buy a new plug that exploded last
Rome.
month in Rome, actually. So, yeah, if you want to help us become a Patreon yourself, become an A-grader, an A-grade Patreon. One last time, patreon.com/A-grade podcast. Great bonus content. You also get free entries into all of our contests, our merch giveaways, which we are having, I think, for the next couple of episodes. If you can guess which place we are going to review after our fourth and final installment of our Italy recap, we're going to do an episode after that fourth one. If you can guess where in America we are going to go review, I'm not going to say if it's what type of place it is, but think about where we are in this Italy experience and where we could go in America. If you can guess what place we would go to review and you're the first one to guess right, you're going to get a free merch mug.
Yes.
So if you're a Patreon member, I'm going to allow you 2 guesses.
Great. So you'll get 2 entries.
If you're not a Patreon member, you can still enter 1 guess. Either DM us on Instagram, direct message us on Instagram your guess, or email us, agradepodcast@gmail.com.
And we'll announce the winner on the podcast before we review.
So you got a couple
place.
weeks.
You have a couple weeks, and if nobody guesses it, then we keep the merch.
So get your
or
guesses
you
in.
can buy it.
It's not that hard. You can get a free. Even if you don't like the podcast, why wouldn't you want a free mug?
Yeah.
You gotta be crazy.
Yes.
It's free stuff.
Yes.
All right. Sounds
All right.
good. So until next time.
Until next time, arrivederci.
Stay safe, be well, drink well, and ciao.
Ciao.